The 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test should have terrified her. Instead, Zara Adeyemi pressed her palm against her still flat belly and smiled, a real smile, the kind that crinkled the corners of her eyes and made her heart feel 3 sizes too big. She thought about the way Cianho had looked at her last night, his cold Mafia exterior cracking just enough for her to see the man beneath, the one who traced patterns on her skin and whispered promises in Korean that she pretended not to understand. She was falling. Hard. And now, there was a tiny miracle growing inside her. Zara, open the door right now. Imani's voice shattered the moment. Zara's best friend of 15 years didn't wait for permission. She burst through the bathroom door, mascara streaking down her gorgeous brown skin, her own pregnancy test clutched in her trembling hand. 2 pink lines. Zara's stomach dropped. We need to talk, Imani whispered, her voice cracking. Because there's something I never told you about that night at the Kang mansion. And if Cianho finds out the truth. She pressed her hand over her mouth, choking back a sob. He'll kill us both. The pregnancy test slipped from Zara's fingers. Because in that moment, she realized something devastating. Both of them were pregnant by men from the most powerful Korean Mafia family in Atlanta. But only one of those babies was actually Kang Cianho's. And the secret behind the other one could destroy everything, their friendship, their relationships, and possibly their lives. Before we continue this intense story, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, this story only gets more dramatic from here. Now, let's rewind to where it all began. 8 weeks earlier, Atlanta, Georgia. The Golden Lotus wasn't just a restaurant. It was a kingdom. Tucked into the affluent Buckhead neighborhood of Atlanta, the establishment served as the legitimate front for one of the most powerful Korean-American crime syndicates on the East Coast, the Kang family empire. From the outside, it looked like any other high-end Asian fusion restaurant, complete with a Michelin star and a 3-month waiting list for reservations. But those who knew. The real business happened upstairs, behind doors that required fingerprint scans and passwords that changed daily. Zara Adeyemi had no business being there. At 26, she was a forensic accountant for a mid-sized firm downtown, the kind of woman who color-coded her calendar, kept emergency snacks in her desk drawer, and had never received so much as a parking ticket. She wore her natural hair in goddess locks that fell past her shoulders, her dark skin glowing with the cocoa butter her Nigerian mother had instilled in her since childhood. Her father, before he passed, used to call her his sensible star, the one who would never give him gray hairs. She was sensible, practical, safe. But tonight, she was none of those things. I cannot believe you dragged me here, Zara hissed at Imani as they were ushered past the main dining room toward a private elevator. The hostess who led them was beautiful in that untouchable way, porcelain skin, sleek black hair, a dress that probably cost more than Zara's monthly rent. Imani Baptiste, her best friend since their freshman year at Spelman College, flashed her a brilliant smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Imani was everything Zara was not: bold, impulsive, devastatingly gorgeous, with her Haitian heritage giving her features that belonged on magazine covers. Her dark skin was flawless, her curves generous, her confidence usually unshakable. Tonight, though, Zara could see the cracks. I told you, Imani said through her perfect teeth, keeping her voice low. I just need to explain the situation. Kang Tae-jun is reasonable. He'll give me more time. Reasonable? Zara grabbed her arm, pulling her to a stop just before they reached the elevator. Imani, he's part of the Korean Mafia. They don't do reasonable. They do concrete shoes and shallow graves. That's Italian Mafia, and you watch too many movies. Imani's smile faltered, and for a moment, Zara saw the fear underneath. I messed up, okay? I know I messed up. But the only way out is through. And I can't do this alone. Her voice cracked slightly. Please, Zara. I just need you to have my back. Like you always do. That was the thing about Imani. For all her chaos, she had been having Zara's back since college, through her father's death, through her broken engagement to Marcus, who turned out to be cheating with his coworker, through every heartbreak and setback life had thrown her way. Imani had been there with wine, tissues, and a willingness to key someone's car if necessary. How could Zara say no? Fine, Zara muttered, squaring her shoulders. But if we end up in any kind of trouble, any kind at all, I'm never forgiving you. And I'm haunting you from the grave. Deal. Imani squeezed her hand. Now put on your professional face. We're going up. The elevator was all mirrors and gold trim, the kind of luxury that felt oppressive rather than inviting. Zara watched their reflections multiply infinitely, two black women in business casual attire, about to walk into the lion's den. When the doors opened, Zara forgot how to breathe. The penthouse looked like it had been ripped from an architectural magazine, the kind that cost $15 at airport newsstands. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Atlanta skyline, the city lights glittering like earthbound stars. Modern Korean art adorned the walls, pieces that Zara recognized from her art history elective as being worth more than her annual salary. The furniture was all clean lines and expensive leather, the kind you were almost afraid to sit on. The scent of expensive cologne and subtle incense hung in the air, underlaid with something sharper. Power, maybe. Or danger. And standing at the center of it all was him. Kang Seon-ho. He wasn't handsome in the conventional way, not like the pretty K-pop idols Imani sometimes showed her on social media. His features were too sharp, too severe. A jawline that could cut glass. Cheekbones that created shadows on his face even in the bright lighting. Eyes so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. A thin scar traced from his left eyebrow to his temple, the only visible evidence of the violent world he inhabited. It should have made him less attractive. Instead, it made him magnetic, proof that he had survived things that would break lesser men. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit, his hair pushed back from his face, revealing the full intensity of his gaze. A gaze that landed directly on Zara and didn't move. Her breath caught. Her heart stuttered. Something deep in her chest recognized something deep in him, and it scared her more than the guns she was certain his guards were carrying. You must be Miss Baptiste. His voice was deep, accented just enough to be interesting, to make you lean in closer to catch every syllable. But he still wasn't looking at Imani. His eyes remained fixed on Zara, cataloging her, assessing her, seeing her in a way that made her want to fidget. You've brought a friend. This is Zara Adeyemi. Imani's voice had gone slightly high-pitched, the way it did when she was nervous. She's just here for moral support. Moral support. Something flickered in Seon-ho's expression, amusement, perhaps. Or calculation. Or something else entirely. In a meeting about your gambling debts. Zara's head whipped toward Imani so fast she nearly gave herself whiplash. Gambling? You told me it was a business loan. Same thing, Imani squeaked. It absolutely is not. Before Zara could launch into the lecture building in her chest, another man entered the room. He was younger than Seon-ho, with softer features and an easy smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Where Seon-ho was winter, cold and sharp and beautiful, this man was autumn, warmer on the surface, but with an underlying chill that spoke of dying things. Kang Tae-jun, Seon-ho's younger brother. The one Imani owed money to. Ladies, Tae-jun greeted them warmly, spreading his hands in welcome. Please sit. Let's discuss this like civilized people. The next hour was a masterclass in power dynamics. Tae-jun did most of the talking, laying out the terms of Imani's debt with a smile that never wavered. She had apparently lost $150,000 at one of the Kang family's underground poker rooms, money she didn't have, borrowed against a promissory note that had terms Zara found frankly unconscionable. The interest rate alone is predatory, Zara found herself saying, unable to keep quiet. 20% monthly compounding? That's not a loan, it's indentured servitude. The room went silent. Tae-jun's smile flickered. Imani looked like she wanted to crawl under the Italian leather couch. And Seon-ho. Seon-ho was watching Zara with something that might have been respect. Miss Adeyemi, Tae-jun said slowly, are you a lawyer? Forensic accountant. She lifted her chin. I spend my days tracking financial crimes and fraud. I know illegal lending practices when I see them. Our arrangements are unconventional, Tae-jun allowed. But they're not illegal. There's no court that would hear this case. No police department that would investigate. We operate outside the system your laws are designed to protect. Then you should be ashamed of taking advantage of someone who is clearly vulnerable. Zara's voice was steady, even as her heart raced. Imani has a gambling problem. Anyone could see that. You let her keep playing anyway, kept extending her credit, knowing she couldn't pay. That's not business. That's exploitation. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Taejun's expression hardened, but before he could respond, Seonho spoke. She's right. Every head turned toward him. Brother, Taejun started. She's right, Seonho repeated, his tone brooking no argument. We have protocols against extending credit to obvious addicts. Protocols you apparently ignored. He turned that intense gaze back to Zara. What would you suggest, Miss Adeyemi? How would you resolve this situation? Zara blinked, caught off guard by the genuine question in his voice. She had expected anger, threats, not engagement. She gathered herself, falling back on the professional skills that had served her well for years. I would restructure the debt. Remove the predatory interest, calculate what's actually been borrowed versus what's been manufactured through compounding. Then create a reasonable payment plan, one that doesn't require selling organs or firstborn children. Seonho's lips twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. Draw it up, he said. Excuse me. Draw up a restructuring plan. Show me the numbers. If they're fair, we'll implement them. And somehow, that was exactly what happened. Zara spent the next 2 hours at a table in the corner, Seonho's assistant providing her with financial statements and a laptop. She worked through the numbers, cross-referencing, calculating, building a case. Imani sat nearby, looking shell-shocked. I can't believe you just did that, Imani whispered. You argued with the Korean Mafia. And won. I haven't won anything yet, Zara muttered. Now let me work. When she finally presented her findings, Imani's debt had been reduced from $150,000 to $47,000, the actual principal plus reasonable interest. The new payment plan would take 2 years, not 10, and wouldn't require Imani to sell her apartment or take on dangerous side work. Seonho reviewed the numbers in silence, then nodded. Acceptable, he said. Then, to Taejun, make it happen. Taejun looked like he'd swallowed a lemon, but he didn't argue. As they were leaving, Seonho stopped Zara with a light touch on her arm. His fingers were warm through her sleeve, and she felt that touch reverberate through her entire body. Miss Adeyemi. He handed her a black card with silver embossing, his name, a phone number, nothing else. You have a sharp mind. Sharper than most of the people who work for me. I have a job, she replied, but her voice came out breathier than she intended. Forensic accounting. Impressive. His dark eyes held hers, and she felt like he was seeing straight through to her soul. But if you ever want to put those skills to more lucrative use, call me. I have a feeling you'd find the work interesting. She should have thrown the card away the moment she got home. She didn't. 3 weeks. That's how long Zara lasted before she called him. She told herself it was curiosity. Told herself it was the intellectual challenge of examining financial records that existed in a gray area most accountants never saw. Told herself it was definitely, absolutely, 100% not about the way Kang Seonho had looked at her in that penthouse. The first meeting was professional. Strictly business. He showed her accounts that had been structured to hide certain irregularities from federal investigators, not because he wanted to commit crimes, he explained, but because the legitimate portions of his business shouldn't suffer for the less legitimate ones. You want me to help you hide money from the government, Zara said flatly. I want you to help me separate clean money from dirty money, he corrected. So the clean money can operate in daylight. My family runs hospitals, Miss Adeyemi. Schools. Community centers in underprivileged neighborhoods. Should those suffer because of what my grandfather built? It was a good argument. It was also, Zara knew, a manipulation. But it was a manipulation that contained enough truth to be effective. She took the job. Their meetings became more frequent. Late nights poring over spreadsheets turned into dinners that stretched past midnight. Conversations about business evolved into conversations about everything else, his childhood in Seoul before his family relocated to Atlanta, her dreams of one day opening her own consulting firm, the books they both loved, the music that moved them. He wasn't what she expected. Beneath the cold exterior was a man who had lost his mother at 12 to a car accident that may or may not have been an assassination attempt. A man who had been groomed for leadership he never wanted, who read poetry in Korean when he couldn't sleep, who remembered the name of every person who worked for him down to the janitors. Why forensic accounting? He asked one evening. They were in his private office, the city glittering below them, the remains of Thai takeout spread across his desk. My father, Zara admitted. He was a small business owner, a restaurant, nothing fancy. When I was 16, his accountant embezzled everything. We lost the restaurant, the house. My dad had a heart attack from the stress. He survived, but he was never the same. She paused. I became an accountant so I could make sure that never happened to anyone else. Sian-ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached across the desk and took her hand. Your father raised an extraordinary woman, he said simply. I hope he knew that. He did. Her voice was thick. He passed away 3 years ago. But he knew. I'm sorry. Don't be. He lived long enough to see me graduate, start my career. He was proud. She laughed, wiping at her eyes. He would have hated you, by the way. Absolutely hated everything about your world. Smart man, Sian-ho agreed. So why are you still here? It was a genuine question. No judgment, no expectation, just curiosity about what kept drawing her back despite every rational reason to run. Zara looked at him, really looked, at the scar on his brow and the unexpected softness in his eyes and the way he held her hand like it was something precious. I don't know, she admitted. But I'm starting to think maybe I don't want to leave. The kiss, when it came, felt inevitable. Like they'd been moving toward it since the moment their eyes met in that penthouse. His lips were warm, commanding but not demanding, giving her space to pull away if she wanted. She didn't want. 3 weeks after that first kiss, Zara was in Sian-ho's bed. She couldn't quite explain how it happened. One consultation turned into another, dinners became breakfasts, and somewhere along the way, the line between professional and personal dissolved entirely. This is insane, she told Imani one afternoon over brunch at their favorite spot in Midtown. Sunlight streamed through the windows, making the mimosas glow. I'm sleeping with a Mafia boss. Me. Zara, I've never jaywalked Adeyemi. Imani sipped her drink, her expression carefully neutral. Are you happy? Aye. Zara paused, really considering the question. When was the last time someone had asked her that? When was the last time she'd asked herself? Yes. Terrifyingly, impossibly, against all logic and reason, yes. Then maybe that's enough. Imani set down her glass. Look, I know it's complicated. I know who he is and what his family does. But Zara, I've never seen you like this. You're glowing. You actually left work at 5 p.m. last week. Don't kill me for saying this. You seem alive in a way you haven't been since before Marcus. The mention of her ex still stung, but less than it used to. Marcus had been safe. Marcus had been predictable. Marcus had also been sleeping with his paralegal for 6 months before Zara found out. Speaking of complicated, Zara said, ready to change the subject, how are things with your debt situation? Are the payments manageable? Imani's expression flickered, something Zara couldn't quite read passing across her face. Actually, I have a confession too. What? Taejun and I. Imani trailed off, stirring her mimosa with unusual focus. It started as a way to manage the debt situation, you know? He offered to waive some payments if I'd accompany him to events. Arm candy, basically. But then, she looked up, her eyes uncertain. I don't know, Zara. He makes me feel things. Things I haven't felt since. Since Pierre? Pierre had been Imani's last serious relationship, a Haitian businessman who'd broken her heart 2 years ago by announcing he was actually married with 3 kids back in Port-au-Prince. Yeah, Imani's voice was small. Is that crazy? Am I just repeating patterns? Zara reached across the table and squeezed her best friend's hand. Honestly, I don't know. But I'm the last person who should judge you right now. We're both dating Kong brothers. Both falling for men who are objectively terrible choices. Objectively terrible, Imani agreed, a smile tugging at her lips. But they're such good kissers. The best, Zara laughed. They clinked glasses, the absurdity of their situation suddenly hilarious. This is either the best or worst decision of our lives, Imani said. Probably both. And for a moment, everything felt simple. 2 best friends falling in love, navigating impossible situations together. They had no idea how complicated things were about to become. 6 weeks after that brunch, Zara found herself staring at a positive pregnancy test, her heart hammering so loudly she could hear it in her ears. Pregnant. She was pregnant. With Sian-ho's baby. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror, really looked. Same goddess locks, same brown skin, same professional blazer she'd worn to work that morning. But everything was different now. There was a life growing inside her, a tiny collection of cells that would become a person who would call her mom. A person who would have a mafia boss for a father. Oh God, Zara whispered. Oh God, oh God, oh God. She wasn't ready for this. She hadn't planned for this. She was on birth control. She was always careful, but nothing was 100% effective, and apparently she'd landed in that unfortunate percentage. What would Cianho say? What would he want? They'd never discuss children, never discuss the future beyond next week, next month. Their relationship existed in a bubble, separate from the real world with its real consequences. This was the most real consequence possible. She didn't even have time to process it before Imani burst through the bathroom door, her own test in hand, her own 2 pink lines glowing like a verdict. We need to talk, Imani said, and for the first time since Zara had known her, her best friend looked genuinely terrified. Because there's something I never told you about that night at the King Mansion. And if Cianho finds out the truth... Wait. Zara's brain struggled to catch up. You're pregnant too? Imani nodded, tears already streaming down her face. And it's Taejun's? The silence that followed was deafening. I don't know, Imani finally whispered. That's what I need to tell you. I don't know whose baby this is. They moved to Zara's living room, sitting on the couch where they'd shared countless bottles of wine and Netflix binges. The afternoon sun mocked them with its cheerfulness, streaming through windows onto a conversation that felt like it belonged in shadows. What do you mean you don't know? Zara asked carefully, trying to keep her voice neutral even as alarm bells screamed in her head. Imani took a shaky breath. The night of the New Year's party. At the mansion. Zara remembered. God, did she remember? It had been a lavish affair, champagne flowing like water, beautiful people in beautiful clothes, the Kang family showing off their power and wealth to Atlanta's elite. She had spent most of it in Cianho's arms, dancing, laughing, falling deeper into something she couldn't name and couldn't resist. Taejun and I had a fight that night, Imani continued. Something stupid about another woman he was flirting with. I was angry, hurt, and very, very drunk. I stormed off, ended up in another part of the mansion. I don't remember everything clearly, the champagne, you know, but I remember. She stopped, her face crumpling. I remember waking up in a room that wasn't Taejun's. A bedroom in the East Wing. And there was a man. I thought it was Taejun. I would have sworn it was him, but it was dark, and I was so drunk. Zara's blood ran cold. Imani. I don't know whose baby this is, Zara. The words came out in a rush, tangled with sobs. It could be Taejun's. Or it could be. She swallowed hard. Someone else's. And there's more. When I woke up and pieced things together, I found something on the floor by the bed. A cufflink. What kind of cufflink? Imani reached into her purse with trembling hands and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside was a cufflink, black onyx with a small dragon insignia, obviously expensive, obviously custom. Zara had seen Cianho wear similar ones. Because I didn't know I was pregnant then. And because I didn't want to destroy what you had with him. Imani's tears were flowing freely now. You were so happy, Zara. Finally, after everything with Marcus, you were happy again. I couldn't be the one to ruin that. I kept hoping I was wrong, kept telling myself it must have been Taejun, kept lying to me. Zara's voice was flat. You kept lying to me. I kept protecting you. From what? From the truth? From the fact that I might be sharing the father of my child with my best friend. The words came out harsher than Zara intended, and she saw Imani flinch. I'm sorry. Imani's voice broke. I'm so sorry. The silence stretched between them, heavy with betrayal and fear and 14 years of friendship that suddenly felt fragile. Finally, Zara spoke. We need to find out the truth, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Before anyone else knows we're pregnant. Before we tell Cianho or Taejun or anyone. How? Zara's jaw tightened. I don't know yet, but I'm a forensic accountant. I follow trails for a living. This is just a different kind of trail. And if the trail leads somewhere you don't want to go? Zara looked at her best friend, at the fear in her eyes, the guilt, the desperate hope for forgiveness. Then at least we'll know, she said. And we can figure out what to do from there. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. Okay, pause for a second. If you're enjoying this story, drop a comment telling me what you think happened that night at the Kang Mansion. Do you think Seonho betrayed Zara? Was it really him in that room? And make sure you've subscribed so you can see how this mystery unfolds. Now, let's get into the investigation. The next 2 weeks were a carefully choreographed dance of deception. Zara and Imani agreed to keep their pregnancies secret until they could uncover the truth about that night. That meant acting normal around the Kang brothers, something easier said than done when your stomach was churning with morning sickness and suspicion, when every touch from Seonho made Zara want to either melt into him or demand answers. She threw herself into investigation mode, channeling her professional skills into the most personal case of her life. First, she needed to understand the layout of the Kang Mansion. She obtained the blueprints under the guise of helping with a renovation project for the security systems, a legitimate request that Seonho approved without suspicion. The mansion was enormous, 47 rooms spread across 4 floors, each wing designed for different purposes. The room where Imani had woken up was in the east wing, far from Taejun's quarters in the west wing, but close to Seonho's private suite. It doesn't mean anything, Zara told herself, even as her heart sank. He could have gone anywhere that night. Second, she needed to find out where Seonho had actually been during those missing hours. She subtly questioned his staff, cultivating relationships with housekeepers and security guards under the pretense of learning more about the man she was dating. She cross-referenced the information with security footage. She sweet-talked a guard into letting her review, claiming she was concerned about the safety of the champagne service at future events. The timeline she pieced together was both reassuring and troubling. Seonho had indeed left her around midnight for what he'd called an emergency meeting. The meeting had taken place in the library with several of his lieutenants, confirmed by multiple witnesses. It had ended at 1 a.m. But there was a 2-hour gap between the end of that meeting and when he'd returned to her side at 3 a.m. 2 hours. Where had he been? Third, she examined the cufflink more carefully. It was distinctive, black onyx with a small dragon insignia, clearly custom work, clearly expensive. The dragon was the symbol of the Kang family, used on everything from business cards to tattoos. But when she found an excuse to check Seonho's personal belongings, both of his black onyx cufflinks were accounted for sitting in their velvet case in his closet, exactly where they should be. Which meant, Taejun has the same cufflinks, Imani realized when Zara showed her the findings. They were in Zara's apartment, speaking in hushed voices even though they were alone. They're a family design. All the Kang men have them. Seonho, Taejun, they're cousins. How many cousins are we talking about? At least 4 or 5 who were at the party that night. Relief crashed through Zara so hard she nearly cried. If multiple men had access to those cufflinks, then the field of possibilities was much wider than she'd feared. Then it could have been anyone, she said. Or it could have been Seonho, and his cufflink was returned afterward. The doubt was poisonous, spreading through every interaction Zara had with the man she loved. Because she did love him. Somewhere along the way, between the late nights and the whispered conversations and the way he looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life, she had fallen completely and irreversibly in love with Kang Seonho. And now she didn't know if she could trust him. The pressure of keeping secrets eventually became too much to bear. It happened 3 weeks into the investigation, on a night when Seonho surprised Zara with dinner on the rooftop of his building. The Atlanta skyline spread before them, lights twinkling in the darkness, a private chef preparing course after course of food that Zara could barely taste. "You've been distant," Seonho said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "These past few weeks. Like something's weighing on you." Zara tried to smile. "I've just been busy with work." "You're lying." His voice was gentle, but certain. "I know what you look like when you're working. This is different. This is haunted." She looked at him, really looked, at the concern in his dark eyes, at the way his thumb traced circles on her palm, at the vulnerability he only showed when they were alone. "Seonho." She took a breath. "I'm pregnant." The world seemed to stop. He went completely still, his hand tightening on hers. For a long moment, he didn't speak, didn't move, didn't even seem to breathe. "Pregnant," he repeated finally. "Yes, with my child." "Yes." She paused, her voice catching. At least. I thought so. His eyes narrowed. Thought? And so she told him. About Imani's confession, about the cufflink, about the missing hours in his schedule. About her desperate need to know the truth before she let herself love him any more than she already did. When she finished, Sienho was silent for a very long time. The night air around them felt heavy, charged with something dangerous. You think, he said slowly, his voice low and controlled, that I slept with your best friend while I was with you. I don't know what to think. You disappeared for 2 hours that night. I was meeting with my father. His voice was sharp as a blade, cutting through her protests. The old man flew in from Seoul unexpectedly. He wanted to discuss the family succession, whether I was ready to take over, whether Taejun should have a larger role. I was in the library, arguing about my future, while you were upstairs waiting for me. Can you prove that? Something flickered in his expression, hurt, maybe. Disappointment that she would need proof. But he pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and had a brief conversation in rapid Korean. Within minutes, he was showing her time-stamped photos of his father's private jet landing in Atlanta that night, text messages confirming the meeting, even a receipt from the car service that had picked up the elder Kang from the airport. The timeline checked out. Every minute of those 2 hours was accounted for. I would never, Sienho said, stepping closer, his voice dropping to something raw and vulnerable, betray you like that. Not with your friend. Not with anyone. Do you understand me, Zara? Since the moment I saw you in my penthouse, there has been no one else. There couldn't be. You ruined me for other women. Tears burned her eyes. Then who was with Imani? I don't know. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away the tears that had started to fall. But I intend to find out. Because no one uses my family's name, my family's cufflinks, to hurt the woman I love and her friend. The woman I love. He had said it. He loved her. And the baby? Zara whispered. You're not upset? His expression softened, something like wonder replacing the intensity. Upset? Zara, I'm terrified. I'm not built for fatherhood. I don't know the first thing about children or families or... He took a breath. But when you said you were pregnant, do you know what my first thought was? She shook her head. That I want to be worthy of this. His voice was barely audible. Of you. Of our child. That I want to build something clean and good, something my child can be proud of. Sienho. I love you, Zara Adeyemi. I love you, and I love this baby I just found out about 30 seconds ago, and I will spend the rest of my life proving that I deserve both of you. And despite everything, despite the lies and the investigation and the impossible situation they were in, Zara believed him. She threw her arms around him and held on tight. With Sienho involved, the investigation accelerated dramatically. He had resources Zara could only dream of: private investigators, security experts, access to information that would have taken her months to uncover. Within days, a picture began to emerge. The man who had been with Imani wasn't Sienho or even Taejun. It was Kang Min-suk, a distant cousin who had been visiting from Korea that night. Min-suk was, by all accounts, a bitter man. He'd always resented the main branch of the family. Sienho and Taejun's father had been chosen to lead the American operations, while Min-suk's father was relegated to managing minor businesses in Busan. That resentment had apparently festered into something darker. He used the family cufflinks deliberately, Sienho explained to Zara and Imani in his penthouse office. His expression was thunderous, his usual composure cracked by cold fury. He wanted it to seem like it could have been any of us. A power play, perhaps. Or simple cruelty. Imani was shaking, her hands trembling as she processed the information. I don't understand. I thought it was Taejun. The voice, the build. Min-suk trained as an actor before joining the family business, Taejun said grimly. He had been brought into the loop and was furious on Imani's behalf, pacing the room like a caged animal. He's always been obsessed with me, competing with me, trying to prove he should have had my position. This must have been his way of... He couldn't finish the sentence, his jaw clenching so hard Zara heard his teeth grind. What happens now? She asked. Sienho's eyes were ice. Min-suk will be dealt with. He will face the family council and answer for his actions. What he did to Imani. His jaw tightened. There are rules in our world. Lines you don't cross. He crossed them. I don't want violence, Imani said quickly, alarm in her voice. I don't want anyone hurt because of me. I just want. She trailed off, apparently unsure what she wanted. It won't come to that, Sienho assured her. But he will be stripped of his position and exiled from the family. His name will be erased from our records. For Kong, that is a fate worse than death. And the baby? Imani's voice was small. It's his. The timing, the circumstances. This baby is Min-suk's. A heavy silence fell over the room. Taejun stopped pacing and crossed to where Imani sat. He knelt before her, taking her hands in his usually playful expression replaced by something fierce and tender. This child is innocent, he said firmly. Whatever its biology, it doesn't carry the sins of its father. And if you'll let me. He paused, swallowing hard. If you'll let me, Imani, I want to raise it as my own. I want to be there for you. For both of you. But it's not yours. It's mine if I choose it. His voice was unwavering. And I'm choosing it. I'm choosing you. Both of you. Imani burst into tears, collapsing against his chest. And Zara, watching from across the room, felt Sienho's arm wrap around her shoulders. Are we okay? He murmured into her hair. We're okay, she confirmed. We're more than okay. For the first time in weeks, she actually believed it. But peace in the Kang family was always temporary. Min-suk's exile was swift and merciless. The family council, a group of elders who governed the organization's code of conduct, convened within days. Evidence was presented, testimonies heard, and judgment rendered. Min-suk was stripped of his shares in the family businesses, his name literally crossed out of the family registry, and he was given 48 hours to leave the country. He went screaming threats and promises of revenge, but no one paid him any attention. An exiled Kong was a powerless Kong. Or so they thought. What they didn't expect was the news of the pregnancies to leak. Someone, perhaps Min-suk before his exile, perhaps someone else with an axe to grind, had whispered in the right ears. Within days, everyone in the Kang organization knew that both Cooper brothers were about to become fathers. And that one of those children wasn't biologically a Kang at all. The backlash was immediate and brutal. This is unacceptable. Kang Dong-wook, the patriarch, had flown in from Seoul for an emergency meeting. He stood in the formal receiving room of the mansion, his silver hair perfectly groomed, his traditional hanbok lending him an air of ancient authority. Both of you, carrying on with outsiders. Foreigners. And now this scandal with Min-suk's bastard. Father. Sienho's voice was dangerously quiet. Choose your next words very carefully. Dong-wook turned his glare on his eldest son. You forget yourself. I am still the head of this family. And I am the CEO. The one who has tripled our legitimate revenue in 5 years. The one the men actually follow. Sienho stepped forward, and Zara saw some of the lieutenants in the room shift uncomfortably. You may hold the title, but I hold the power. Don't force me to prove it. The tension in the room was suffocating. Zara could barely breathe. Beside her, Imani was clutching Taejun's hand hard enough to leave bruises. These women are outsiders, Dong-wook continued, though some of the fire had left his voice. They don't understand our ways. They'll never truly be part of this family. Then the family needs to change. It was Taejun who spoke, surprising everyone. He was usually content to let Sienho take the lead, but now he stepped forward, his expression fierce. This isn't Korea. This is America. And Imani and Zara are American. If this family can't evolve, it'll die. Just like every other organization that clung to the old ways. You dare lecture me about survival? I built this empire. Grandfather built this empire, Sienho corrected coldly. You maintained it. I'm the one growing it. And I'm telling you now, father, if you try to force me to choose between my position and Zara, you will not like my choice. I will walk away from all of it. And I will take Taejun with me. You wouldn't dare. Test me. Father and son stared at each other across the room, the weight of generations pressing down on them. Finally, Dong-wook laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that held no humor. So the Ice Prince finally found his fire. Very well. He looked between his sons, something unreadable in his expression. Keep your women. Keep your bastard children. But know this. When this all falls apart, and it will, don't come crawling back to me. He stormed out, his entourage following. The moment the door closed, Zara finally let herself breathe. Sienho was at her side immediately, pulling her into his arms. I'm sorry you had to witness that. Is he always like that? He's worse when he's not in front of an audience. Seon-ho pressed a kiss to her forehead. But it doesn't matter. He can't touch us. He doesn't have the support. Are you sure? I'm sure. He pulled back to look at her, and his expression softened. You're carrying my child, Zara. My heir. Nothing and no one will threaten that. I promise you. She wanted to believe him. She really did. But she learned that in the Kang world, promises were often the first casualties of war. Of course, Dongwook wasn't their only problem. There were those within the organization who saw the changing dynamics as an opportunity. Chief among them was Park Soo-yeon, a beautiful Korean woman who had been groomed since childhood to marry into the Kang family. She had set her sights on Seon-ho years ago, and she was not pleased about being displaced by an African-American forensic accountant. I don't trust her, Imani said one afternoon as they attended a charity luncheon at the Four Seasons. They watched Soo-yeon glide through the room in a designer dress that probably cost more than Zara's car, her smile perfectly calibrated to charm and intimidate in equal measure. She looks at you like she wants to put arsenic in your tea. The feeling is mutual, Zara replied, sipping her sparkling water. At 4 months pregnant, she was starting to show a small bump that she couldn't quite hide in her fitted dress. But she's not stupid. She wouldn't do anything overtly hostile. It's the covert stuff I'm worried about. The rivalry escalated at a formal dinner 2 weeks later. Both Zara and Imani were showing clearly now, Zara with a neat bump that Seon-ho couldn't stop touching, Imani with the slightly larger swell that the doctors had revealed to be twins. Yes, twins. The ultrasound had revealed that Min-suk's deception had resulted in 2 babies, not 1. It was complicated, emotionally fraught, but Taejun had doubled down on his commitment. 2 babies just means twice the love, he'd said, and Imani had cried for an hour. At the dinner, Soo-yeon made her move. The event was a celebration of a major business deal. One of the Kang family's technology companies had been acquired by a Silicon Valley giant for several $100 million. The cream of Atlanta society was in attendance, including a number of Korean-American business leaders who Soo-yeon clearly considered her natural allies. It's so brave of you, Soo-yeon said loudly during the cocktail hour, her voice carrying across the room with practiced precision. She was speaking to a group of older women, but her eyes were fixed on Imani. Taking on someone else's children. I heard the father was that disgraced cousin who was exiled. Such a scandal for the family. The room went silent. Imani's face crumpled for a fraction of a second before she recovered, schooling her expression into careful neutrality. But before Zara could intervene, Taejun was on his feet. He crossed the room with the easy grace of a predator, and the crowd parted before him. Soo-yeon, he said, his voice pleasant but his eyes deadly. I understand you've been running up quite a debt at our casinos. Interesting, considering your family's recent financial difficulties. Something about your father's company being investigated for fraud. Soo-yeon paled dramatically. That's none of your business. Everything that happens in Kang establishments is my business. He stepped closer, and Soo-yeon took an involuntary step back. And if you ever speak to my girlfriend, the mother of my children, like that again, I'll make sure your family's financial difficulties become very public knowledge. He smiled, all teeth and no warmth. Do we understand each other? She practically fled the room. Later, Zara found a moment alone with Taejun on the balcony. I didn't know Soo-yeon had money problems, she said. She doesn't. Taejun shrugged, though his expression was still tight with anger. But her family does have some legal troubles they'd rather keep quiet. I may have exaggerated for effect. Is that ethical? No, but it was effective. And no one threatens Imani. No one. Zara studied him, this man who had surprised her at every turn. You really love her, don't you? His expression softened. More than I thought I could love anyone. She and those babies, they're my family now. My real family. I'd burn the world down for them. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Let's hope. He paused. But if it does, I'm ready. The attacks didn't stop with social humiliation. Someone was systematically targeting the Kang family's legitimate businesses. It started small, a shipment delayed here, a contract falling through there. But within weeks, it became clear that this was a coordinated campaign. We've lost 3 major accounts this month, Seon-ho said, pinching the bridge of his nose. He was in his office, Zara curled on the couch nearby, reviewing documents he'd asked her to look at. All of them citing concerns about corporate stability. Someone's spreading rumors, Zara said. Planting stories with business journalists, maybe. Whispering to clients. Obviously. The question is who? Zara hesitated. She'd found something in the financial records, something she wasn't sure how to share. Cian-ho, there's a pattern I noticed. Money moving through shell companies, ending up in accounts that trace back to Korea. To Busan, specifically. He looked up, his eyes sharp. Min-suk. I can't prove it yet. But the timeline matches. This started right after his exile. That bastard. Cian-ho stood, pacing to the window. I should have known he wouldn't go quietly. He's trying to destroy us from the outside. There's more. Zara pulled up another document on her laptop. He's not working alone. Some of the transactions connect to accounts here in Atlanta. Someone inside your organization is helping him. The silence that followed was terrible. Who? Cian-ho's voice was ice. I don't know yet. But given the level of access required. She trailed off, hating what she had to say next. It has to be someone senior. Someone you trust. For a long moment, Cian-ho didn't move. Then he crossed to her, pulling her to her feet and into his arms. This is why I need you, he murmured against her hair. Not just because I love you, though I do. But because you see things I miss. You catch what others hide. I'm just doing my job. No, you're protecting my family. Our family. He pulled back to look at her. Find the traitor, Zara. I'll handle the rest. She nodded, a familiar thrill of professional satisfaction mixing with something deeper, pride, maybe. Or belonging. I will, she promised. Whatever it takes. At 7 months pregnant, both women faced a health crisis that threatened everything. It started with Zara's routine checkup. Her blood pressure was elevated, not dangerously high, but enough for concern. The doctor recommended bed rest and careful monitoring. I can't just lie around, Zara protested. I'm in the middle of an investigation. You can investigate from bed, Cian-ho said firmly. He had insisted on being at every appointment, canceling meetings and delegating responsibilities that would have seemed unthinkable months ago. Your health, our baby's health, comes first. But this is not negotiable, Zara. His voice was gentle but unyielding. I almost lost you before. I'm not risking it again. She wanted to argue, but she saw the fear beneath his composure, the terror of a man who had already lost his mother, who couldn't bear to lose anyone else. Fine, she relented. But I'm keeping my laptop. Meanwhile, Imani was facing her own complications. Carrying twins meant double the strain on her body, and her blood sugar had been fluctuating wildly. The doctors were concerned about gestational diabetes and the impact on the baby's development. Twins are always high risk, the specialist explained, and your situation is particularly delicate. I'm recommending hospital monitoring for the last 2 months of your pregnancy. 2 months. Imani's voice cracked. I can't be in a hospital for 2 months. Taejun took her hand. You can if it means keeping our sons safe. How do you know they're sons? I don't. But I'm hoping. He kissed her knuckles. 3 men to protect you. What could be better? Despite her fears, Imani laughed. Cian-ho arranged for both women to have rooms in the private wing of Emory University Hospital, the best medical care money could buy, with around-the-clock security to ensure no one could threaten them. For weeks, they rested, monitored, worried. Zara continued her investigation from her hospital bed, tracing financial threads through endless documents. Imani read pregnancy books and bickered with Taejun about baby names. And somewhere along the way, despite everything they'd been through, their friendship began to heal. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about that night, Imani said one afternoon. They were in Zara's room, watching a terrible reality show on mute while their respective partners handled crises outside. I should have trusted you. You should have, Zara agreed. But I understand why you didn't. I was happy, actually happy for the first time in years. You didn't want to ruin that. I was scared. I know. Zara reached over and took her hand. But we're past it now. And whatever comes next, we face it together. Like we always have. Imani squeezed her fingers. Sisters. Sisters. The piece shattered at 3 in the morning. Zara woke to the sound of alarms, distant but distinct. She struggled to sit up, her 7-month belly making every movement awkward, when the door to her room burst open. Men in black tactical gear streamed in. For a terrifying moment, she thought it was an attack. Then one of them spoke, and she recognized the voice. Miss Adeyemi. Mr. Kong Dongwook requires your presence. Please come with us. Dongwook. The patriarch. The father-in-law from hell. I'm not going anywhere, Zara said, her voice steadier than she felt. This is a hospital. There are security cameras, witnesses. The cameras have been handled. The man gestured, and 2 others moved toward her bed. Please don't make this difficult. Our instructions are to bring you unharmed, but we can be flexible with that definition if necessary. They escorted her, carefully, mindful of her pregnancy, out of the hospital through a service entrance. Outside, a sleek black SUV waited. Inside, she found Imani already there, pale and terrified. They came for me first, Imani whispered. I didn't know what to do. It's okay. Zara grabbed her hand. Whatever this is, we face it together. The drive took them outside the city, to an estate Zara didn't recognize, older than the main Kang mansion, with a cold, sterile feel that spoke of a different era. They were brought to a formal receiving room where Dongwook waited, his expression triumphant. Ladies, he said, spreading his hands as if welcoming guests. Thank you for joining me. You kidnapped us from a hospital, Zara said flatly. At 3 a.m. A strong word. I prefer relocated. He settled into an ornate chair, regarding them like insects under glass. I gave my sons a chance. I warned them what would happen if they chose poorly. But they didn't listen. So now I must take matters into my own hands. What do you want? Imani demanded. Simple. Dongwook produced a folder from a side table. You will sign these documents agreeing to leave my sons and never contact them again. In exchange, you'll receive generous financial settlements, $5 million each. Enough to raise your children comfortably without any connection to the Kang family. Zara almost laughed at the absurdity. You think money will make us abandon the fathers of our children? I think money makes most people do most things. He leaned forward, his eyes cold. And I think you're both smart enough to recognize when you're outmatched. My sons may believe they can protect you, but they can't. Not from me. Not from the forces I can bring to bear. You're bluffing, Imani said, though her voice wavered. Am I? Dongwook smiled, a chilling expression that didn't reach his eyes. Minsuk's campaign against our businesses? I've been feeding him information. The rumors, the lost contracts, all me. And it's just the beginning. I can destroy everything my sons have built. I can make their lives miserable in ways they can't even imagine. Why? Zara asked. They're your children. Why would you destroy them? I'm not destroying them. I'm saving them. For the first time, emotion crept into his voice, not warmth, but passion. The Kang family has survived for 3 generations because we maintained discipline. We married within our community, chose partners who understood our ways, preserved our bloodline and our traditions. And now my sons want to throw all that away for, what? Love. He spat the word like a curse. Love is a weakness. A liability. I'm protecting them from their own foolishness. By kidnapping their pregnant girlfriends? By removing the source of their distraction. He pushed the folder toward them. Sign the papers. Take the money. Disappear. It's the best outcome for everyone. Zara looked at Imani. Imani looked back. And in that moment, a wordless communication passed between them, 14 years of friendship compressed into a single glance. They had faced Marcus's betrayal together. They had faced Pierre's lies. They had faced poverty and heartbreak and loss. They had faced the discovery of their pregnancies, the investigation, the family council. They were not about to be intimidated by one bitter old man. No, Zara said. Dongwook's expression flickered. Excuse me? No, we won't sign. No, we won't take your money. No, we won't disappear. Zara straightened in her chair, one hand resting protectively on her belly. You can threaten us all you want, but you can't make us leave men we love. And you can't stop us from giving these babies the families they deserve. You stupid girl. She's not stupid, Imani interrupted, her voice stronger now. She's braver than you'll ever be. And so am I. We've survived things you couldn't imagine, Mr. Kong. We've survived loss and betrayal and heartbreak. You think a little kidnapping is going to break us? You think some money and threats will make us run? Dongwook's face darkened. You underestimate what I can do. And you underestimate us. Zara met his gaze without flinching. Seonho and Taejun will find us. And when they do, you'll be the one who has to answer for this. By the time they find you, it'll be too late. The doors burst open. Seonho stood in the entrance, flanked by his men, his expression carved from ice and fury. Behind him, Taejun looked equally dangerous. Father, Seonho said, his voice deceptively calm. Step away from them. Now. The confrontation that followed would become legend in Kong family history. Seonho didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. His presence alone filled the room, commanding attention and obedience from everyone present, including his own father. How did you Dongwook started? Tracking devices, Seonho said simply. On every car in our fleet. On the women I love. Did you really think I wouldn't have contingencies in place? This is between me and these women. There is no between you and them. There's only my family, Zara, our child, Taejun, Imani, and their children. You are either with us or against us, father. And right now, you are very, very much against us. Taejun had already moved to Imani's side, helping her to her feet, checking her for injuries. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? The babies. We're fine, Imani assured him. Scared, but fine. I will handle this, Dongwook insisted, though his voice had lost some of its authority. These women are not suitable. These women are the mothers of my children, Seonho interrupted. And you kidnapped them. Pregnant women. From a hospital. He stepped closer, and Dongwook actually stepped back. What kind of man does that? I was protecting the family. You were protecting your ego. Seonho's voice dropped to something deadly quiet. You can't stand that we chose women you didn't approve of. You can't stand that we have love, real love, something you've never had and never will have. Mother loved you once, but you destroyed that with your cruelty and your control. And now you're trying to do the same to us. Something cracked in Dongwook's expression. Your mother left you. She was going to take us back to Seoul, away from you. But she died before she could. Seonho's voice was steady, but Zara could see the pain beneath. I found her letters after the funeral. I know the truth. The silence that followed was devastating. Dongwook seemed to age 10 years in 10 seconds. His shoulders slumped, his imperial presence diminishing until he was just an old man who had made terrible choices. I did what I thought was right, he said finally. You did what you thought would give you control. Seonho shook his head. And now you've lost everything. The family council will convene tomorrow. Evidence of your unauthorized actions will be presented. Your involvement with Minsuk's campaign against us will be exposed. That was admitted on your own lips tonight. Zara's phone was recording from the moment she woke up. Seonho smiled, though there was no warmth in it. You taught me to always have contingencies, father. Did you think I wouldn't use them against you? The coup was swift and decisive. By morning, Kong Dongwook had been stripped of his authority, his shares transferred to Seonho, his influence reduced to nothing. He was put on a plane back to Korea with enough money to live comfortably but no power to wield. As the plane took off, Seonho stood at the window of his penthouse office, Zara at his side. Are you okay? She asked softly. I exiled my own father. His voice was hollow. Am I supposed to be okay? I don't know. She slipped her hand into his. But you protected us. You protected our baby. Whatever else happens, I need you to know I'm grateful. And I love you. He turned to her, and some of the ice in his expression melted. I love you too. More than I knew I could love anyone. He pulled her close, one hand resting on her belly. And I promise you, both of you, no one will ever threaten our family again. At 8.5 months pregnant, both women went into labor on the same night. It was chaotic, beautiful, and utterly exhausting. The hospital in Atlanta had been secured, an entire floor reserved for the Kang family. Seonho and Taejun were there, hovering, panicking, being absolutely useless in the way that soon-to-be fathers always are. If you tell me to breathe one more time, Zara growled at Seonho between contractions, I will end you. I love you too, he replied, gripping her hand. I'm serious. Oh God, here comes another one. You're doing so well, the doctor said. I don't care what the doctor said. The doctor isn't pushing a watermelon through a garden hose. In the next room, Imani was having a similar conversation with Taejun. Why is this happening to both of us at once? She wailed. Because you two do everything together, Taejun said. Even this, apparently. I hate you right now. That's fair. But I love you anyway. 6 hours later, the waiting was over. Zara gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, tiny and perfect, with her father's dark hair and her mother's brown skin. She weighed 7 pounds, 2 ounces, and her cry was the most beautiful sound Zara had ever heard. They named her Sora, meaning sky in Korean, because she had opened up Zara's entire universe. In the next room, Imani welcomed twin boys, healthy, loud, and absolutely identical. She named them Marcus and Matthew, honoring both her Haitian heritage and the American home where they would grow up. Taejun held them like they were made of glass, tears streaming down his face. They're really mine now, he whispered. My sons. Imani touched his cheek. They always were. And in her own room, Zara watched Seonho cradle their daughter, the ice prince completely melted, reduced to a puddle of parental adoration. I never thought I could feel this much, he admitted. It's terrifying. Welcome to parenthood, Zara laughed. He leaned down to kiss her, gentle and reverent. Thank you, he murmured against her lips. For choosing me. For staying. For giving me her. Thank you for fighting for us, she replied. Even when it meant fighting your own family. I would fight the whole world for you, Zara Adeyemi. Don't you know that by now? She did know. And for the first time in her life, she felt completely, utterly safe. 6 months later, the backyard of the Kang mansion had been transformed. Gone were the sterile gardens and formal hedges of Dongwook's era. In their place, Seonho had created something warmer, a family space with a play area for the children, a comfortable seating arrangement for outdoor meals, and a garden where Zara had started growing the vegetables her Nigerian grandmother had taught her about. Baby Sora was 6 months old now, a cheerful, curious infant who had her father wrapped around her tiny finger. The twins, Marcus and Matthew, were slightly younger, but already developing distinct personalities, Marcus quiet and observant, Matthew loud and demanding attention at all times. They're going to be trouble, Imani sighed, watching Taejun attempt to feed both boys simultaneously. Just like their adoptive father. I heard that, Taejun called. You were meant to. Zara laughed, bouncing Sara on her hip. These moments, ordinary, domestic, filled with love, still felt like a miracle after everything they'd been through. The business had stabilized. With Dongwook gone and Minsuk in exile, Seonho had implemented reforms that pulled the family further from their criminal roots and deeper into legitimate enterprises. There were still shadows, still aspects of the Kang Empire that Zara preferred not to examine too closely. But the direction was clear, toward the light. Her own career had evolved too. She'd left her old firm and started a consulting business, legitimate forensic accounting work, with the Kang family as her primary client. It gave her purpose, independence, and the flexibility to be present for Sora's milestones. Imani had surprised everyone by returning to school, pursuing a degree in social work. I want to help women like me, she'd explained. Women who make bad choices because they don't see other options. Women who need someone to show them they're worth more than their mistakes. Life was good. Better than good. Which is why, when the letter arrived, Zara knew it meant trouble. The envelope was black, sealed with red wax bearing an unfamiliar crest. Inside, a single sheet of expensive paper held 5 words in elegant calligraphy. The debt remains. Payment comes. No signature. No explanation. What is this? Zara asked Seonho, showing him the letter that night. His expression went carefully blank, the mask he wore when he was hiding something. Where did you get this? It was delivered to the mansion. Addressed to me. She studied his face. Seonho, what debt? What payment? He was silent for a long moment. Before my father's exile, he finally said, he made certain arrangements. Deals with people outside the family. I thought I'd found all of them, but... He took the letter, examining it with dark eyes. This crest. It belongs to a family in Korea. Old money. Old blood. Old grudges. What kind of grudges? The kind that span generations. He set the letter aside and pulled her close. Don't worry. I'll handle it. Seonho. I'll handle it, Zara. I promise. This is my burden, not yours. But later that night, after Sienho had fallen asleep, Zara lay awake, turning the words over in her mind. The debt remains. Payment comes. What debt? What payment? And why did she have the terrible feeling that whatever was coming would threaten everything they'd built? The next morning, Zara found Imani in the nursery, rocking a fussy Matthew while Marcus slept peacefully in his crib. We need to talk, Zara said quietly. Something's happening. Something Sienho isn't telling me. She explained about the letter, the crest, Sienho's reaction. Imani's expression grew troubled. Taejun's been acting strange too. Secret phone calls. Meetings at odd hours. I thought it was just business, but now you're not sure. Now I'm not sure. They looked at each other, two women who had faced impossible odds and survived. Two mothers who would do anything to protect their children. Whatever this is, Zara said, we face it together. Together, Imani agreed. Like always. But even as she said it, she felt a chill run down her spine. Because somewhere out there, in the shadows of a world she was only beginning to understand, something was moving. Something old and dangerous and patient. And it was coming for them. 1 year later. The first anniversary of Sora's birth should have been a celebration. And it was filled with balloons and cake and far too many presents from doting family members. The babies were all walking now, or in the twins' case, running and causing chaos. The mansion rang with laughter and joy. But underneath the festivities, tension simmered. The mysterious threats had continued over the past 6 months. More letters. Strange men watching the mansion from parked cars. Business deals falling through at the last minute for unexplained reasons. Sienho had become increasingly secretive, disappearing for days at a time, returning with shadows under his eyes and new security protocols that bordered on paranoid. You have to tell me what's going on, Zara demanded one night, after the party guests had left and Sora was asleep in her crib. I'm not some fragile flower you need to protect. I'm your partner. I deserve to know. Sienho was silent for a long moment. My father made a promise, he finally said. Before I was born. To the Lee family in Seoul. What kind of promise? A marriage promise. His voice was hollow. The eldest son of the Kang family would marry the eldest daughter of the Lee family. Uniting two empires. It was an old custom. A way of sealing alliances. Zara felt the blood drain from her face. But you're married to me. We're not legally married. Not yet. I was waiting, he ran a hand through his hair. I was waiting until everything settled. Until I was sure there were no more threats. I didn't want to make you a target. I'm already a target. We have a child together. I know. He reached for her, but she stepped back. Zara, please. Who is she? The woman you were supposed to marry. Lee Yuna. I met her once, when we were children. I barely remember her face. But her family, they're powerful. More powerful than the Kangs in some ways. And they're calling in the debt. They want you to leave me? To leave Sora. They want what was promised. If I refuse, they'll destroy everything I've built. Everything we've built. The words hung in the air like a sentence. Zara's mind raced. A year ago, she had been a simple forensic accountant. Now she was standing in a mansion, arguing about arranged marriages and international crime families and debts that predated her birth. How had this become her life? What are you going to do? She asked finally. Sienho's expression was fierce, determined in a way she'd never seen before. I'm going to fight, he said. I don't care what my father promised. I don't care what the Lee family wants. You're my family now. You and Sora. And I will burn their entire empire to the ground before I let them take you from me. Zara looked at him, this man who had gone from a cold stranger to the love of her life, the father of her child, the center of her universe. Then we fight together, she said. Whatever it takes. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Together, he agreed. Always together. But outside the window, in the darkness of the Atlanta night, a black SUV sat parked across the street. And inside, a woman with elegant features and cold eyes watched the mansion with a patience born of centuries of power. Lee Yuna had waited 28 years for what was promised to her. She could wait a little longer. But not much. And that, my loves, is where part 1 ends. But this story is far from over. If you want to see part 2, where Zara faces off against the mysterious Yuna, where secrets from both families come to light, and where Zara and Imani have to fight for everything they love. You need to let me know in the comments. Drop a fire if you're ready for more drama, more romance, and more twists you won't see coming. Make sure you're subscribed and you've hit that notification bell, because part 2 is coming soon and you do not want to miss it. Until next time, stay blessed, stay beautiful, and remember, love is always worth fighting for.